When we voted for Kamala Harris, when I cast my vote for Harris, that was me saying, I care about you and I want you to survive and thrive.
Nebraska going into bankruptcy because of self-inflicted damage.
I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months.
Y'all, it's scary. These are the people who are working the fields. These are the people who are cultivating our foods and making sure that we have food on our tables and food on the shelves in stores. And they are raising all of the red flags.
Nebraska going into bankruptcy because of self-inflicted damage. They were team firing over here, saying, you know what, everybody pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Our ideology is nobody should get anything that they don't deserve. Now they want a bailout. They're asking for socialism. Socialism bad until I need socialism. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months. I do not care. I do not care. Maybe a few other of those red states should go bankrupt in 6 months so the blue states can swoop in to save them, so they can understand that we are not the bad ones. We are not the poor ones. We are not the ones who cannot survive under the orange turds' crazy policies. But you know why I don't feel bad for Nebraska? You know why? Because I believe I heard 65% of their workforce is undocumented people, which means they're not coming to work anymore, which means work's not happening, which means all the farmers in Nebraska are going to go bankrupt because they all went out there and voted against their neighbors. 65% of neighbors who are immigrants, okay? Fuck around and find out at this point. You know what I mean? And of course, I do feel bad for those blue people in Nebraska who did not vote for this. So unfortunate. That's what you get for being racist and not wanting immigrants in this country, even though they're paying taxes and contributing, so.
So recently it has come out that Nebraska is knocking on the door of bankruptcy based upon tariffs and a number of other policies that the current administration has enacted via executive order and the like. And that got me wondering about a bunch of things, and I found myself on farming TikTok or farm TikTok, whatever you want to call it, and listening to farmers who own small family farms in multiple states, both red and blue farmers, and y'all, it's scary. These are the people who are working the fields. These are the people who are cultivating our foods and making sure that we have food on our tables and food on the shelves in stores. And they are raising all of the red flags. And nobody's listening to them. The people on the ground who are in charge of the food that is going to our shelves, that are going to be on our tables, are all raising red flags, talking about the issues that we're going to face, including the fact that multiple countries are sick of the bullshit and back and forth with Trump's tariffs. And what they're doing is they're making long-term deals with other countries, specifically Canada. Like Japan just went around the United States and made a multi-year deal with Canada for corn. This is going to get bad really, really quickly because a lot of farmers are saying that it's looking really, really bleak going into next year, as in, like, they don't know if they're going to continue to be able to run their farms with as much acreage because they don't have people to work the fields. They don't have people to help pick the produce or whatever it is that they're growing. Folks, if you're not on the farming side of TikTok, listening to the people on the ground who are actually the ones dealing with this, who are going to be able to give us the biggest hints about the supply chain issue with food, you really need to get over there because it's very insightful and terrifying at the same time.
Nebraska's GDP is down 6%, and farmers are struggling. And Congressman Don Bacon says tariffs aren't helping. Corn is one of the things Nebraska is best known for, but right now, it's a crop that isn't guaranteeing a profit for some farmers. The Nebraska Farm Bureau tracks crop prices. In July 2022, it was selling for more than $7 a bushel. That's now dropped to less than $5. Soybeans went from $16 to $10 in the same time frame. Bacon says tariffs are only exacerbating the issue, and he says it's time for Congress to reclaim its authority over tariff policy.
Putting tariffs on 80 different countries, is that an emergency power or is that tariff policy? I think that's tariff policy, and tariff policy is under the purview of Congress. And I think it's time that Congress bring this authority back.
Bacon says he doesn't believe the majority support behind the effort is there yet, but he expects it will be a good debate in September. For more details on this story, head over to KETV.com.
So this morning I ended up on Nebraska Talk, and it was a bunch of people crying, why does anybody care about Nebraska? When we voted for Kamala Harris, when I cast my vote for Harris, that was me saying, I care about you and I want you to survive and thrive. Okay, you knew better than anybody else that your state thrives and survives off of migrants' backs. Okay? And instead of them waiting for ICE to come, they decided.
It's Joe from Georgia. So we're getting ready for the first domino to fall, and we know what happens after the first one falls. Well, the state of Nebraska, the governor, Jim Pillen, has asked the federal government for help because they're not going to be able to pay their bills this year. And here's the problem in Nebraska. They had over a $2 billion contract with the Chinese government to export soybeans to China. Well, out of that $2 billion, they've canceled all the contracts. So out of that $2 billion, $350 million was state revenue taxes. They're not getting any of that. And the governor also goes on to say that because the migrant farmers weren't able to work in Nebraska this summer, that those people didn't pay their taxes either. And the farmers who already have crops in the ground, folks, they've already spent their money. They're going to need help too because they're not getting any money from the contracts anymore. So Nebraska is the first state. And when you look at the Midwest, you're probably looking at Kansas, you're looking at Iowa, South Dakota, all of those places that are large exporters of grains to China and depend on migrant farm labor. They're not going to be able to pay their bills either. So here's the first one to fall. But of course, as we do know, a certain person in a certain house in Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they know all about bankruptcy. I'm sure they'll be able to help.
Farmers across the country are being affected, but specifically Nebraska farmers are specifically being affected because they don't have staff, their investments are halted, they don't have funding, and this is all thanks to Trump's new imposed tariffs on goods. Now, what are some of the ways that we will be affected in the long run? Because this is only affecting the Nebraska farmers currently. It's scary to think about it. Comment down below what are some of your thoughts on this topic. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.
So Nebraska voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. They didn't vote for him once. They voted for him time and time and time again. They felt that they were making a wise decision, but it turns out that this was probably the worst decision they could have ever made. The nuts and bolts, the core of their economy, the agriculture industry, is absolutely being annihilated as a result of their vote.
Right now, Nebraska has all sorts of challenges are cropping up for Nebraska farmers. The Nebraska Farmers Union says producers are facing the toughest time in decades.
Their costs are rising, but commodity prices are falling, meaning they can't really turn a profit, and that's hurting the rest of the state's economy. Channel 8's Jake Holman joins us live after talking with a local farmer. Jake, what'd you find out?
Yeah, Rod, Sophia, the GDP numbers for the first quarter of 2025, which is another tool, a measurement to estimate the size of the economy. It does not paint a pretty picture for the state of Nebraska here, and in large part because of the largest industry, which is agriculture. Now, tonight we hear how one farmer is coping with these challenges.
With the interest rates where they are right now, it's putting everybody into a bind.
Bill Landon is one of the many farmers in Nebraska who's in a tight spot financially. According to a report from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, Nebraska's gross domestic product fell more than 6% in the first quarter, tied with Iowa for the largest decrease in the nation. And it's because of losses in agriculture.
Now, you remember Don Bacon, the Republican from Nebraska? He's even saying the quiet part aloud. Nebraska's in trouble, and it owes a lot to the tariff policy and all the bullshit that Donald Trump has enacted on that state. So, Don, my man, don't be surprised when everyone told you, just like your MAGA cohorts in your state, everyone told you that this was going to be the case, but yet you failed to listen. My mother would always say, and I think she was a genius, she would always say, if you lie down with dogs, you will get fleas. Well, in Nebraska, you laid down with Donald Trump. You laid down with Donald Trump, knowing what his policies were, knowing his Project 2025 tendencies, and you now have fleas. In reality, this is not about red or blue. This is about business, the business of politics. And I believe that there is a nefarious plan to take family farms. And I'm talking about family farms. And it is based on causing them to go bankrupt, coming in with the hedge funds, and buying at a fire sale price. So, Nebraska, you got exactly what you voted for.
Like, I was all for fucking Trump. Now, with Trump passing the law that if your kid's on if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child, like for child tax. How the fuck does that work?
The funniest thing about this is it isn't even true. These MAGA moms are all over the internet right now screaming and crying about how they regretted voting for Trump because right-wing men who love to control women have spread this rumor all over Twitter, and it's made its way here, stating that if you're a single mother, too bad. If a man pays your child support, he gets to claim your children on his taxes as dependents, even if he hasn't seen them in who knows how long. And they are breaking down. Is this how we win? Well, interestingly enough, it's kind of weird how you don't care how your vote affects anyone else, but you start crying and backtracking when it hypothetically affects you, even if it doesn't actually affect you. And it also shows how susceptible you guys are to misinformation and how misinformation will literally sway how you think and vote. But regardless, this is how we win. We just tell these single moms out here, spread rumors. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's car note. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's fucking mortgage and electric bill. And I guess they'll regret their vote. This is fucking hilarious. Anyways, my name is Mercedes Chandler. Give me a follow or you won't see my face again. Thank you. Goodbye.
In this latest edition of Fuck Around and Find Out, Nebraska, the state of Nebraska, going bankrupt. Nebraska farmers going bankrupt because of Trump's tariffs. They all love to vote for Trump out in Nebraska. Not all, but big majority of them. And look at now. Look what's happening to Nebraska. Going broke because of Trump. Never learn. Some people never learn. The one thing they never learn is that it is immigrants that make America great, not Trump. He makes America shit. Immigrants.
Hey, did you guys see this shit? I guess ICE just raided a Nebraska meat packing plant. And overnight, 80% of their workforce was gone. And if you want to know why, it's because they weren't supposed to fucking be there in the first place. And you want to know what happened next? Dozens of Nebraskans lined up to take those jobs. Glen Valley Foods was flooded with locals ready to work. Proud Americans stepping the fuck up. Love hearing that. But here's what pisses me off. That video, the video of the raid that shows all those oppressed illegal immigrants in handcuffs and this one little spoiled punk-ass kid flipping off the camera. Now, that's entitlement. Can you fucking imagine? And before you lefties start lighting up my comments, call me a racist or a fascist or a piece of shit or whatever other slur you guys are calling people who don't agree with you and have a difference of opinion this week, maybe you should take the time to understand my position on this. Because here's what you should know about me. I firmly believe in law and order. And if you come to America, there is a process. You can follow it. Anybody can. Millions have. But if you break in illegally, you are a burglar. Simple as that. I can't go break into your country and demand free shit. Why should you be able to do that to us? If I trespassed into Mexico, I'd be arrested. If I crossed into Canada illegally, same thing. But here, they expect amnesty and free healthcare, free education, free fucking everything, all on your dime. And see, I'm just not okay with that. So I hope this little punk flipping off the camera after he got caught burglarizing our country gets exactly what he deserves. And here's what the media won't tell you. Americans do want those jobs. Just not at garbage wages competing against illegals. You clear them out and watch how fast Americans step up. Nebraska proved it. Meanwhile, our politicians throw the book at you for a fucking speeding ticket, but they look the other way when people use fake social security numbers to steal American wages. That's the reality of it. And don't give me this fucking sob story about how we need them when we've got veterans sleeping in the streets. We've got mothers working double shifts just to keep the fucking lights on. And we've got teenagers who are just desperate at a shot at their first job, but they can't get it. And yet somehow the priority is making sure that some cartel-connected asylum seeker can keep packing meat in Nebraska. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. And the thing that gets me the most, the smug middle finger in that arrest photo. That's not somebody thanking you for the opportunity that this great American nation has afforded them. That's contempt from some little shit who got caught doing what he shouldn't have been doing. That's someone laughing in your face for letting them get away with it for this long. And this whole situation should piss you off. Not because it happened in Nebraska, but because it's happening fucking everywhere. And every time you see an illegal alien working a job, understand this. That paycheck could be in the pocket of an American family. That tax revenue could be funding your kid's school instead of getting wired out of this country. The solution isn't complicated. Enforce the damn law. Clear the jobs. Hire Americans. That's it. It worked in Nebraska, and it'll work everywhere else too.